24 million views on Twitter. How did this happen? There's more diversity of thought on the political right than on the political left. But I wonder, do people know what this graph is? Do you know what the nodes are or the edges are or what this means really? The graph comes from this paper, and what the authors do is get 400 people to reply to statements like abortion should be illegal, the government should take steps to make incomes more equal, and so on. They have 8 different statements, and a respondent needs to give an answer 1 through 5. 1, strong disagree, 2, disagree, 3, neutral, 4, agree, 5, strong agree. 5 possible answers for each of 8 different statements. That gives us 40 statement answer pairs. That's what the nodes or the vertices are in this graph. Each node is a statement answer pair. There are 40 different nodes, and they're colored so that the blue is the strong Democrat opinion, the dark blue is the strong Democrat, light blue is the weak Democrat opinion, light red is the weak Republican opinion, dark red, you get the idea. Edges on the graph represent correlations to the other statement answer pairs. How likely are you to give this statement answer pair if you also gave this statement answer pair, for example? And then the strength of those correlations is going to essentially set the distance. So strong correlations are going to pull the nodes closer together. In other words, what this graph is showing us is that the Democrat coded answers, these 8 statements, are highly correlated. I think this graph is showing us more about these 8 statements and their answers than it is about the political left or political right. I should note that the paper doesn't actually say this. The paper doesn't make the claim that there is more diversity of thought on the political right than on the political left. I'm not certain where this comes from. If I Google for it, I get this post on the Asmongold subreddit. I'm not sure that's the right source, but this kind of language, although they pride themselves on open-mindedness, liberal thinking actually coalesces around a very narrow set of opinion, whereas the right diverges widely. That's not in the paper. And it shouldn't be in the paper, because again, the paper's experiment is just about these 8 statements, which are not the entire range of political thought. And we can easily imagine alternate statements that would split up Democrats and concentrate Republicans. So to do that, we could just think about statements where far left people might have a different opinion than center left people, and right-leaning people would be concentrated. So maybe you could say socialism is a force for good, and far left people would probably strongly agree with that, center left people might be more skeptical, and right-leaning people would say, no, I strongly disagree with that. Or we could say that gender is entirely a social construct. I think that would have the same pattern. Again, you could imagine alternate statements that are just as valid that would produce a different graph. Another problem here is that they're using the wrong figure to make this statement. This comes from the survey the authors did with the 400 respondents. I think there's a problem with that, which is on a categorical scale, 58% of respondents self-identified as Democrats, 28% independent, and 14% as Republicans. In other words, they have a very skewed sample. And the authors do try to weight the responses to adjust for this. But the fact that there are only 14% Republicans, there are fewer Republicans in their survey than there are independents, and far fewer Republicans than Democrats. Democrats are 4 to 1 more common than Republicans in their survey. That should tell us that they aren't evenly sampling the population, and their sample is somewhat strange, and that should make us suspicious that the few Republicans they managed to find are actually representative of Republicans more broadly. Authors go on to look at a different and much larger survey with over 8,000 respondents, the American National Election Survey. And this is nationally representative. And from those results, the authors produce this figure. And you can see the Democrat answers are still more concentrated than the Republican, but it seems less extreme. And we also have this tendril of Democrat-coded answers that extend into the center and closer to the Republicans. So as I understand it, this is the graph produced by something like a convenience sample, the 400 responses that they had easy access to that they tested their ideas with first. But this figure is actually more representative. Again, much larger survey, over 8,000 people, and nationally representative as opposed to the weird Republican small sample. So is there more diversity of thought on the political right than on the political left? Maybe. I don't know. I don't think this paper really shows that. That's not that strong evidence. So, yeah, thanks for your time.